Welcome back to Pockets Pocket, and in this episode, we'll be going deeper into how regulation and interactions with the informal sector help us understand what they do and why they do it. The city is defined as structured and planned, where informal enterprises create situations that contradict the structure of streets. And while cities are defined as spaces that have engagement in economic activities, especially retail, through storefronts, malls, buildings, a structured space that people can navigate themselves through. Streets are an essential structuring element and tool to informal economies that allows traders to extend their living environments and their economic capabilities with streets. The voices of street traders lack representation from government organizations or support from trading unions, and the voices of traders are viewed as weak when speaking to change and standing up for themselves. But the perspectives of street traders are collectively seen as self-interested individuals, which I view as very harsh. But what do we do to protect the interests of street traders who are trying to make an honest income? As an individual cannot be boiled down to a single word, in the same sense that space cannot be confined to a single use or manipulated through rules and regulations to dictate how traders can operate, where we have not lived through those experiences ourselves. This speaks to our constitutes knowledge and reflecting more on the discussion with Tobias James and his views of the informal businesses and traders as entities that stand to gain a lot from one another and vice versa with the informal economy. Their communities of street traders are more efficient in influencing and engaging with than formalized trade. And a good perspective when dealing with people is to place yourself in their context. Reframing urban design to sequence developing world cities, designing for patterns in Yeoville, Bellevue, Johannesburg was a good read that I engaged with and an eye-opener to the possibility of first-hand experiences with an industry that we pass by every day but sometimes don't even give second thought to. The researcher who investigated informal trading in Yeoville inserted themselves into the street trading industry where they built relationships and became a member of this community, not only to the traders but also the customers, owners and employees of neighborhood stores as they worked in a day-in, day-out industry. In their research and practices as an informal trader, they became aware of the complexities that street traders need to face. Although rent may not be a major factor when you think about selling goods on the street, they had to come to a sort of agreement with a fellow trader to pay a form of rent in order to get a good spot. This wasn't even a big space, it was just a small little attachment onto another trader's table. I think that is a fundamental way to break the barriers between the separation of informal and formal and a structure of exclusion and understanding the dynamics of operation and the will for street traders to be in city centers but are forced out of. By inserting themselves in the spaces of trading, an expression of what you can see and ask about on surface level was elevated in practice. And that restructured a process and thought in what he thought he knew about an industry and the actualities about a trader as a user and the strategic alterations to streets that they become part of the furniture. Looking at space as a tool for economic value that facilitates and supports the types of engagements and has fundamental facilities and systems that can support sustainable functionality, streets are spaces that are layered with operations and systems, which defines the city in patterns of different uses and activities, not defined only by buildings, but through spaces and activities that are reflective of the emotions and expressions of its users. Informal traders are challenged by regulation, pressed on and enforced by institutions that small, medium, and micro enterprises, or SMMEs, are becoming important sources of employment and income and being acknowledged by all spheres of government. And through the SMME Action Plan, there was an increase for financial and non-financial support, pushing the agenda of supporting local businesses through these trades and reducing regulation constraints. In the same document, one of the major obstacles that they highlighted was government bureaucracy, management and support, which goes hand in hand with poor infrastructure and the difficulty of micro industries like street traders to find and access physical space in which they can operate. Trading spaces are selected on the basis of the accessibility to pedestrian movement. Trading is best located in areas where there's various directions of movement, not only on foot but by car. And focusing in on Johannesburg, especially the CBD, a previous government initiative attempted to keep traders on the go. Operation Clean Sweep Johannesburg was an initiative that was implemented to manage and essentially eliminate illegal use of public space by street traders and vendors through policy, and there was great resistance to this because the policy required street traders to be on a constant move with their products and time limitations to how long they were allowed to be in selected streets, and this not only made pavements inaccessible to informal traders but dissociated people who are reliant on place-specific complexities and the social and economic value that urban public spaces creates. Evictions don't address the problem, and nor does relocation. They only heighten the tension and conflict with informal trading communities and local government. With the acceptance and the support that government is trying to instill for street trading through policy, informal traders are still faced with uncertainty and continuous interruptions to employment by the disturbances of businesses and constant change or need for permission to utilize the space. Authorities try to keep their cities in order, which conflicts with their right to work and the occupation of public space. That when government takes into consideration the selection and demarcation of trading areas for registered traders to make use of, policy ensures that the surrounding context for formalization or registration and demarcation needs to analyze both the space and the potential of the space for the informal trader, to designate areas that are specific but also surrounded by inclusive spatial, economic, and social principles that intend to guide development that rids itself of inequality, enforces dignity, and productive growth. In some ways, planners are rigid in what they know and how they define space through policy and regulation, but how we also reclaim space without fencing people out. How are our solutions perceived, or who is empowered and who isn't? A positive development to facilitate both pedestrians and economies are separated from one another. City users range from informal traders, pedestrians, motorists, and institutions, and for space to be transformed by people and people to transform space, there needs to be a strong identity, and urban pockets of trade occur in proximity to transport corridors, where the appropriate use is determined by social context and the use of this targeted land. Using the Warwick Junction in Durban as a good example of positive reinforcement and gaining opportunities for traders from government as an urban renewal project that didn't relocate traders and vendors from the street and markets that were grown around a bus and taxi rank as a mixed transport and market node. The Durban municipality initially did try to displace traders and destroy the market to build a mall, but after much resistance from the traders, with the involvement of legal action and court cases that were predominantly pro bono, they were able to adapt and build a link between informal traders and the local municipality, where the interactions between informal traders and local authorities were able to achieve integration projects that enhanced activities for street traders by studies that were conducted to understand the influence of taxi routes and the links that plays in the locality of street traders, where the success of this community as an entire pocket of informal trade that has worked through improving the trading environment instead of relocating and formalization was supported by the municipality. As street trading, we initially described it as pre-modern, activity subordinate, informal, shadow economy, unregulated, but as a group of resilient, innovative, creative, and makeshift urban residents participating in misfit economies that weaves their way through regulation to make its business possible. Looking beyond the surface of street trading and its possibilities, what we have in our pockets to facilitate change, the options of planners, is not to impose and develop utopias that are misrepresentative of their needs, but to engage in a conversation that allows nuanced thinking and problem solving to solutions to put forward. Who is empowered through management? How do we enable the pockets of traders to grow a small, resilient community that is working its way to be part of something that does not isolate itself from the rest? I'll leave you with a short poem by Kaitie Butler. The largest one has all the power. Little businesses shrink and cows. The wishes for how we want to live is perfectly competitive. Wouldn't it be nice if not one person set the price? I'm your host, Kiara Britton. Thank you for joining me in the series Pocket to Pocket. Until next time.